Hello and welcome to a special telecast on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. As part of a series of interviews that we are conducting on 4 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, we have with us a very special guest today, the Union Minister for Commerce and Industry, Mr. Suresh Prabhu. Sir, welcome and thank you for joining me on Rajya Sabha television. Let's start first with the achievements of your ministry over the last 4 years.
See, basically, the backbone of an economy has to be industry, service sector, manufacturing and all that. And to succeed in making that happen, it has to be integration of that activity with the global economy. So the exports come in. So both industry and commerce become very significant contributor to the economic growth. We had seen in the first few years that thanks to the slowdown in the global economy, India's exports were very significantly down. I'm happy to say that in the last few months now we have taken it to the new level and we are working on even a higher path for growth for this year. Today also we had a meeting.
What's your target for this year?
No, actually I'll tell you, rather than the numbers, I would feel what we should work on is a strategy. So when we did a midterm review of exports, the foreign trade, we said we'll work on strategy. Because if you have strategies in place, the implementation of strategy, the outcome will be the numbers. But if you chase the numbers without a strategy, we'll be lost. So we are working on that. The second part is business. Now India's business is always private sector driven. And it is basically Indian entrepreneurship which has made it as successful as it is today. We should allow the entrepreneurship to grow. So what was the hurdle in the entrepreneurship? Ease of doing business. So I am thankful to Honorable Prime Minister who took that initiative. And in the 1 year, we have improved the ranking by almost 41, 42 points and come to 100. Now our target is next to take it to 50, if not immediately, but we are working on it. The third part of this is entrepreneurship, is startups. When we have new ideas, then we will succeed in business. If you continue the same business, आपका पुराना इडली डोसा ही बना रहे तो people taste must have changed, but you want to do the same thing, it may not work. So you have to work out on something which is catering to the taste of the market, of the people who want to buy your products. So Startup India was the Prime Minister's brainchild, which has resulted in at least more than 20,000 startups getting registered in the country with the ministry. But we have more startups which are not even registered. So startup is essentially kick-starting of new thinking in India, and that is what happened to the startup program. Then the new program is the geographical indicators. We have very different varieties of products, very unique to that particular place. Like a friend will wear a sari, she will wear a sari from Banarasi Shali. So Banarasi Shali obviously has to belong to Banaras. Banaras Shali cannot be made in some vague place. So, but if you don't have a geographical indicator registered for that, you will not get it. Some very handicrafts, one of the best handicrafts that are made in India, they are made in particular place. So Meerut is known for some place. So we have to think about such places like that, and we have identified them.
Do you believe that the time has come now that we start thinking out of the box and start innovating?
Absolutely, we are actually doing that. I am seeing a huge changes that are happening as a result of this. So the first...
Can you cite some examples?
Yeah, for example, industrial growth has now touched almost 8-9%. Last year exports were the highest in the last 6 years. So exports have increased. Or 4 years maybe. But our exports have increased significantly first time, and that has registered a positive growth of close to 10%. We are already working on the new strategy, new markets, so that is also showing results. We are getting into that. Industrial production has gone up. The new confidence in business, which is the prerequisite for increasing economic activity, has improved considerably. Ease of doing business is always a concrete example of that. So I think all of this put together, you will see a significant change in India's economic outlook for the next few years' time.
Private investment hasn't picked up though. Do you see that as a problem area?
See, this is an issue, and that is something to do with legacy. What happened was during the boom period, India invested huge amounts of money into capacity creation. And the capacity creation was disproportionate to the demand at that particular time. And when the global slowdown came, particularly after 2008, and then there was a downward trend, the industry couldn't really manage to survive in that context. So capacity utilization was down to almost 60-65% in some of the sectors, which has improved now dramatically in the last 2 years. But capacity utilization has direct relationship with private investment, because the investment which has been made into capacity creation, unless that becomes fully utilized and not optimally functional, why would people make investments into new capacity? So these are directly related to that. That was the first element of the problem. The second element was the banking issues, because some of this capacity utilization means assets have been created, but there is no matching returns on that. So some of the banks had facing the problem of non-performing assets. So NPAs were rising. So banks were not willing to give more money. So one is a private investment through equity form, other is a private investment coming from the loans. So that again were drying up. So all put together, that put a lot of pressure on this. What we did was, as a government, we supplemented it by way of increasing public investment, which has resulted in economy stabilizing, and now we are seeing private investment coming in.
That having been said, till the time private investment picks up, do you believe that public spending is the way to go forward?
Absolutely, and that's what we did. I will give an example of railways. See, I presented the first full budget of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, and under his guidance we prepared a plan for 8,54,000 crores budget for the 5 years. 8,54,000 crores. In the first 3 years, the capex committed was almost 3 lakh crores, 2,75,000 crores. How much we have invested in railways cumulatively in the first 70 years? 3 lakh crores. So 3 lakh crores is a cumulative investment in the capital expenditure of the railways in the first 70 years post-independence, whereas our government, Narendra Modi government, made 2,75,000 crores investment, commitment to investment in the first 3 years. So you can imagine the increase in public investment, the point
Sure.
you're asking me.
Sure. But Mr. Minister, that having been said, how long can the public spending sustain the economy?
No, it's right, you're absolutely right. Private investment will come in, and that's why I'm saying now we are seeing different signs. One, industrial production going up. That means capacity utilization is improving. Number two, we are now seeing that banks are also willing to lend money on the new prudential norms. Thirdly, the equity also is coming into the market. There are a lot of even IPOs coming in, which were not there earlier. So that means the private investment is coming in. We are seeing also the FDI coming in. Just imagine, the private investment can come from domestic sources or can come from foreign sources. So even both ends, from private it is increasing from domestic, but also is increasing from the foreign sources. FDI, India is now one of the largest destinations. Third, very interestingly, India gets almost $70 billion every year as remittances. $70 billion, almost 69 billion, 70 billion. Remittances. What are the remittances? The people of Indian origin working abroad sending money back. Where the money is going? The money is going into savings of India. So that also will be channelized through investment. Another very interesting thing, and which we must realize, because of formalization of economy post demonetization, because of GST coming in, which has increased the base of taxpayers significantly, and these are the two major reforms of the Prime Minister Modi for structural changes in the economy. What has it resulted in? It has resulted in more savings coming into the Indian banking system, formalized banking system. You need for investment, you need savings. If you don't have, how will you make investment without savings? So savings only turn into investment. So the prerequisite for private investment is a domestic saving, which has increased considerably. So you will see the downstream effect of this over a period of time will be substantial increase in the private investment.
Talking about the banking sector, the NPA and the twin balance sheet problem, do you see that being a problem going forward?
See, banking, I am not trying to take a refuge by saying it is the previous government or other issues, but as a reality, it's a legacy issue. We had lent to corporate sector and to others, not necessarily following the best possible prudential norms. I am not saying it's only political leadership which is responsible for it. I am not saying it's only banking leadership responsible for it. I am not saying whether regulatory is responsible for it. I am not making any pointing finger only at one particular institution or particular individual. I am saying systemic issues were allowed to go out of hand. Consequently, it has resulted in the banking system becoming vulnerable, first time. Otherwise, our banking system has always been very robust and very strong, because we had Basel norms which we have always been following for capital adequacy. We had prudential norms which we have always been following for income recognition. We are also following prudential norms for deciding how doubtful assets should be recognized. All those norms, if we had followed very strictly as we are doing it earlier, probably this situation wouldn't have arisen. But there is a problem. As a result of which, bad debts increasing or ODUs, non-performing loans increasing, it has affected capital adequacy. So capital infusion has to happen, because capital infusion again, and it mainly in case of public sector banks, because government being the majority shareholder, the capital has to come from the government. So government means it is again putting pressure on the fiscal situation. So capital adequacy norms, to meet them, government has provided good amount of money. I will tell you, this is something which we don't really realize. What Prime Minister Modi has done, he has come out with a new policy in which appointment of functionaries in the public sector bank is happening for the first time with a system which is probably best in the world. It's a completely different hands-off relationship which the people are getting elected. It saw the cases, he has started making chairman different and a managing director different. So bifurcating two positions. That brings good corporate governance, because the CMD chairing the meeting of the board, at the same time he is also executive officer dealing with the day-to-day operation. He doesn't work well. So he's done that. He has come out with no interference from political system into bank loan giving. So all these are very, very important, significant changes which have happened in the government.
Sure. Let's take the discussion forward, take our discussion forward. And if you look at the global scenario, countries that were talking about globalization are becoming more and more protectionist these days, America being one of the prime examples. So as the world is becoming more protectionist, is there an opportunity for India?
See, firstly, I always look at it like this. In individual life or even in country's life, there are certain things on which you are controlled to change. Those things you should make full effort and change. There are certain on which you have no control. So what do? You can then have an action plan ready in such a way that I have no control over that situation, but I will deal with the situation in a manner that will make it beneficial to me. So we are working on both. One, wherever we have control, we are trying to do as much as possible. Where for the second part, as then we are correctly saying, in Buenos Aires, when there was a WTO meeting, I could clearly see, and this was just, I was in office only for a few weeks, I clearly saw that was clear writing on the wall, that protectionism is rising, people are going to oppose globalization, and country like US is taking very active stance in doing that. So what I did immediately was, there itself I announced that India will host a mini ministerial. I was happy that 19th and 20th of March, within just few weeks of that, we called top countries in the world, and I'm happy that all of them came, and this was the biggest mini ministerial ever. And the WTO Director General who came also said, and all the countries, those who came, those who were invited, and that's why they came, but those who were not invited, all of them unanimously said that this was the best meeting and that India's initiative was very well received. So we are working on
So Mr. Prabhu, are we looking at new avenues then?
See,
as far as
we are developing new markets and new products. I have met at least 150 people, countries, ministers, delegations, business people, either in India or abroad, or multilaterally or plurilaterally or bilaterally. Why? Because we want to develop new products and new markets. We had a meeting with all the secretaries, Government of India, to tell them that each ministry must get geared up to develop new markets and new products. So we are doing everything possible. Exim Bank is doing market research to understand which are the opportunities, which are the markets which can penetrate. We had a meeting in Africa, first in East Africa, 11, 12 countries, recently Southern Africa, then we'll follow it up with Northern Africa, with Western Africa and Central Africa. All Latin American countries, we have met them. All Central Asian countries, Middle East countries, ASEAN, all 10 ministers from ASEAN were here. So we are East Asia, we have done everything possible. With EU, first time we have started another dialogue with them. So we are working on all these issues at the same time to make sure that best efforts will be put in to make India a very relevant to global economy.
Another issue that I wanted to raise with you is that of the trade deficit with China. What's being done on that front?
See, trade deficit is a function of import increasing export. Now, export we are trying to increase, but imports they rise dramatically, suddenly, then we have a problem. We have analyzed it very carefully. The two issues which are really causing it. One is oil. Now oil, the prices have gone past $70 already. So if the oil prices shoot up by 25% over a period of time, so it's big challenge to us. So therefore, this is causing one problem. Gold, India's appetite for gold consumption. Our government tried to do everything possible, including gold bonds, monetization, everything. But still people want to buy. So we are trying to again work on that strategy. But I think unless we take these two important components, others are something which are really required as intermediaries or something in India. But our strategy is to reduce trade deficit by increasing export. Also service will significantly contribute because services will help us to get our current account deficit. Because services export will be very important. I am very sure that services will be rising at a higher rate than merchandise in terms of international global trade.
Could pharmaceuticals be another area?
We are working on pharmaceutical big way. I had a very good meeting with all the pharma industry. We are promoting them significantly in new markets, and therefore pharma is a great possibility. We are really working on it and we will take it forward to that. We have come out with a package for leather industry, we have come out with a package for garment and textile industry. Textile is little down, we have to work on that. We are really working on each one of that.
You spoke about rising crude prices. The rupee too is depreciating. Is that going to cause a problem?
See, rupee depreciation is an issue because that also affects, particularly when you import, it affects the price issue. But in an economy, sometimes lower currency also helps exports. So we are trying to find out how best we can take advantage of the situation.
And what is your focus area going to be for the next 1 year?
No, we are focusing on reviving economy. We are focusing on more manufacturing. We are working on $5 trillion economy action plan. We are working on ensuring that new industrial corridors will get functional. We are ensuring that India's share in global trade will increase. We are increasing exports. So we are having on the 15th of May a global exhibition on services. Mahamahim Rashtrapati ji will inaugurate it. So we are working on quite a few areas. So 1 year is full of activities. We will not wait for anything else, but we will focus on that.
The ADB, World Bank and everyone else has said that India is going to be the fastest growing economy in next fiscal and the fiscal after that as well. What is going to be the growth driver?
No, I am very sure about, 18 will be better than 17, 19 will be better than 18. I am very sure about it. India is on a right path of progress, and honestly, it is all Prime Minister's great leadership. Leadership matters a lot. In Singapore, became a great country thanks to the leadership. US, in the initial year, they had such a fantastic leadership that made it happen. UK economy changed tracks when there was a very strong leader. So we need a leader who has a vision, who has the ability to implement, who thinks ahead of time without ignoring the issues today on hand. So we have such a leader. So I am very positive about India.
Before I let you go, I want to ask about your other ministry that you're in charge of as well, the Civil Aviation Ministry. So what's happening as far as the Civil Aviation Ministry?
We had a growth of almost 30% last month. We have already set up a task force for manufacturing of drones. As you know, I had written this letter from here as the Minister of Industry to the Minister of Civil Aviation, but Prime Minister appointed me as Civil Aviation Minister, so I used as the Civil Aviation Minister, appointed a task force and made my colleague Jain Sinha as the chairman of that. We are trying to work on a manufacturing of civil aviation aircraft. We are trying to work on a new cargo policy, because when there is an airspace vacant, particularly at night when domestic flights are not there, we'll use that space for that. We are also working on helicopter service to happen. UDAN we want to make it, so maybe 56 new airports and others will happen. We are working on expansion of present airports to match with the capacity of growing traffic. So we are doing all of that.
Is infrastructure going to be the key, because we've seen air traffic control on the rise in India?
That is the issue. Therefore, we are using technology. We are trying to find out the best practices. We are completely reinventing ideas so that they will become relevant.
And finally, what's happening with Air India?
Air India is still flying, so I wish them best. And Air India is an airline which is one of the great institutions in India, so I wish them all the best.
And okay, since it was short and sweet, I'm going to also ask you a question about the railways, because that's a portfolio that you've held in the past as well. What's the future for the railways in this country?
The railways, we had prepared a complete plan to take into account everything about the railways, whether it was human resource issues, whether it was modernization of railways, whether it was expansion of railways, whether it was safety of railways, whether it was punctuality of railways, whether it was a technology infusion into the railways, whether it was saving money for the railways. For example, 41,000 crores will save only on energy in the railways in the next 10 years. We are working on one ICT, that means integrating all the platforms and bringing them into one so that railway can be operated from one single unit. We are working on everything that is necessary for the railway station modernization, all programs. We started the world's best and the fastest complaint redressal mechanism, which was nowhere in the world you can find out, and that was working very successfully. So we had worked on everything in the railways. It's a matter of time. You'll see the fruits of that over a period of time, because it takes time for it to happen. But I think railway will also have a good future.
All right, Mr. Suresh Prabhu, a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much for joining me on Rajya Sabha Television and sharing your views on all the three ministries.